Yeah, so ready to go ahead and get started. Before the performance, before Quiet Company actually gives a concert, we are going to actually have a very special privilege here to hear Taylor Muse, the lead singer of Quiet Company, lead singer and songwriter. He's going to give us a talk, sharing his personal story of how he went from a Christian to a atheist songwriter. And this will actually be the first time he has given such a talk to a public audience. So we're very lucky to have Taylor, and he will also be happy to do Q&A after his talk. So here we go, Taylor Muse.
Hello, everybody. I think I'd like to open with a joke. Okay. I have like 3 jokes. They're all Jesus related. The band doesn't let me tell them on stage anymore. So you guys are in for a treat. Okay, so there were these 3 nuns hanging out, cleaning the Father's room. And the first nun says, "You guys will not believe what I found in here the other day." They're like, "What?" And she was like, "I found a dirty magazine, a pornographic magazine." And the other nuns were like, "That's terrible. It's terrible. What did you do?" And she said, "Well, I threw it away." And they're like, "That's good." And then the second nun said, "But you guys won't believe what I found in here the other day. It was a box of prophylactics." And the other nun said, "That's terrible. What did you do?" And she said, "Well, I took a needle and I poked holes in all of the prophylactics." And then the third nun said, "Shit." Good night, everybody. Y'all have a good one. I want to thank you guys and Vic and the Rhodes for having us out. We're really happy to be here. My name is Taylor Muse. I grew up in East Texas, Longview, Tyler area. For those of you who have visited that area, you probably might know that, as is much of Texas, it's pretty Bible belty. And I grew up in it was a big Southern Baptist church then, and it's a mega Southern Baptist church now, called Moberly Baptist Church. And I accepted Christ when I was, I think, in 7th grade, and then again for good measure in probably like sophomore year, and then accepted the call to the ministry shortly after that. So I was big on Jesus, and anyway, continued on that path for a while. I think after 2 years of college, I moved out to Nashville, Tennessee, which is a nice enough place to live unless you're a musician, but it was terrible. And I started reading a lot of books because I'd gone through a big breakup, and I was just kind of in this, I'm going to reinvent myself, and I want to be a person that reads. So I started reading a lot of books, and I discovered Kurt Vonnegut in that, and for the first time in my life, I had a favorite author, and that was exciting. And that was the first time that I ever heard the word humanism, or even heard the term atheism put in a light that wasn't wholly negative. And the way that he spoke about humanism and what it really meant to be a humanist, it made sense to me in a way that nothing ever had really made sense before. But I was still a Christian for a long time after that. And it wasn't probably until, I'd read everything that man ever wrote, and then a lot of other things, had a lot of conversations. We had put out a couple of records. I'd moved to Austin after a year in Nashville. I'd met Tommy, our guitarist, and we had started playing together. Back in like 2006, our first record came out on a Christian record label called Northern Records. And we never considered ourselves to be a Christian band, but we were certainly writing music that had religious imagery and talked about heaven, and as if from the perspective of a person who expected to go there. At that time, we were a 3-piece, and it was Tommy and myself, and then a drummer named Tim, who was way more fundamentalist than I was at the time. I had kind of very much become what I consider a liberal Christian, which I guess meant that I believed in Jesus, but I thought gay people should get married. And then I also thought that everyone should kind of do whatever they wanted to do. And then I also thought that if someone put a gun to my head and said, "Do you believe in God?" then I'd probably say no. And do you guys remember when that happened at Columbine? That was the thing. People were wearing those shirts that said, "She said yes," because there was a story about the girl who put the gun to his head, or if he put the gun to her head and said, "Do you believe in God?" She said yes, and so he shot her. And I remember when that happened, like as terrible as that is, I was like, oh, well, she should have said no. Like, I wouldn't have said yes. And that was a little telling to me, because I was like, well, maybe I don't really believe as much as I kind of thought I did. But I remember when it was Tommy, me, and Tim, we were driving around on tour all over the country, and Tommy was a lot more militant than he is in his old age now, and had always been an atheist, like as far back as he could remember. And so we kind of had a weird dynamic in the band at that time. It was on the far left, Tommy of atheism, and then on the far right we had Tim being very fundamentalist, and then I kind of felt like I was in the middle all the time, and they would argue, and I would never say much. But it got to be the point where I was like, I'm agreeing with the atheist way more than I'm agreeing with the Christian. And that's probably not a good sign, for someone who wanted to stay a Christian. So a few years later, as I kind of continued to drift and read more, have more conversations, my wife and I learned that we were expecting our child. And when that happened, that kind of forced the issue, because my parents started asking a lot of questions about, well, where are you going to take it to church and stuff. I don't even remember what happened that day that made me just kind of be done. But I came home from work and told my wife, I think I have a bit of a crisis of faith. And she was like, well, what do you mean? And I said, I can't make a case for Christianity that would convince myself if I were to meet myself today in some kind of existential time portal way. And so when I had that realization, with the upcoming daughter being born, I kind of realized that I'm not going to lie to her about how I think the universe works, or I don't think the universe works. And therefore, if I'm not going to lie to her, it's just going to be way more convenient if I stop lying to everyone else. And then at that point, we just kind of embraced that we were no longer part of the club, and we moved on. And about that time, we started writing our third record. It's called We Are All Where We Belong, which was a concept record about all of that stuff. And just kind of, the idea was, there's the cover right there, trying to encompass all of the emotions and thoughts that go through your head once you're leaving a faith that you've wrapped your identity around. So that's what, we're going to play a lot of that stuff tonight for you guys, and hopefully you like it. We have some for sale over here if you like. We've been doing a lot of Christmas shows the past week or two, so we may throw some holiday songs in there for you if that's cool. I forget what else I was going to say. I guess it wasn't that important. Oh yeah, we've done a lot of press. I think that you guys kind of found us, the Roads found us after we had our NPR piece that aired last year, which was really nice. So we had a spot on Fresh Air or whatever it was, all things considered.
We found you at the convention.
Oh, we were at the convention. Okay. Yeah, we did the convention. That was fun too. Anyway, I've done a lot of press about it over the past couple of years, and one thing that people always, I think, kind of want to hear me say is that something really terrible happened to me because of religion. And I think people want that because terrible things have happened to a lot of people because of religion. But in Austin, Texas, in the year 2009, 2011, it was a pretty safe place to be an atheist. So I don't really have any terrible stories about religion or the damage that it's done to me personally, apart from just making me feel really terrible about touching my own penis. But past that, nothing bad ever really happened to me. My experience in the church was almost wholly positive. I learned to play music there, and a lot of my best friends were there. And if I'm being honest, I miss it quite a bit, you know? I think events like this are really great. I don't miss the religion or the faith necessarily, but I miss the community. I miss feeling like there's a place where I'm surrounded by like-minded individuals. That's why I think events like this are really great for you guys. So we're really happy to be here with you. And I want to thank you for having us. And that's about all I got for a story.
All right, thank you, Taylor, very much for that great talk. Thank you for sharing all that with us. So yeah, Taylor's going to be happy to take questions from the audience. Just try to keep the questions brief, try to make them questions, and try to make them topical. And we'll repeat the questions for those who can't hear. Who would like to start us off with the Q&A? Brandon, over here. The question is whether or not his wife is also an atheist.
Well, my wife actually was raised Jewish, so she actually does have stories because she was like the only Jewish person in Tyler, Texas, in high school, and so she had a lot. Every time her friends would go to like church camp or disciple now, they'd come back really fired up and tell her how she was going to hell, and it became an issue. So she actually does kind of have like a lot of resentment towards the church, but when we were getting together, she actually converted to Christianity, like, for me. And I told her, like, hey, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me. It's not going to change anything about us. If you believe it, great. If you don't, like, I don't care. But she converted or whatever. And then when I came home and told her that day, like, I don't really believe this anymore, her immediate response was, oh, good, because now I can stop acting like I do. And my immediate response was, did you think that you were convincing me of that? Like, did you think that I believed it? I didn't ever for 1 second think that you cared about that, you know? So no, she is an atheist, ex-Jew, atheist, kind of whatever you call it. Any other questions? All right. No questions. Oh, Brandon again. Brandon's question is how my lack of religion, or having had religion and now current lack of religion, affects raising my daughter. I don't think it does, man. Like, I think that children accept the world that they're presented, and she doesn't care, you know, and she's 5 now, and she is such a good person. Like, she is the kindest, like, sweetest girl. She just already has like such good character. I don't know where she got that from, because both her mom and I are terrible people. But she is really amazing, and we actually, the other day at school, all of her friends ganged up on her, and I say, not ganged up on her, but they all started asking her if she believed in God, if she went to church, and she said no. And so they surrounded her and kind of just kept talking about it, and it really upset her, and she was crying, and the teacher called us, and she was super cool about it. But that was the first time she's ever really had it influencing her life at all, was when that happened the other day at school. So other than that, man, she doesn't care. And I don't think I think kind of the worst thing that I think religion ever did to me was just ingrained in me like this longing for it, you know. And so it's like part of me always kind of wants to believe in something bigger, but like I have no evidence that anything exists. So it's just kind of this I don't know, weird feeling nostalgic feeling I get for church and religion, and that probably won't ever really be sated again, you know? So I think it's the worst thing that happened to me, and I don't think she's going to have to deal with that at all if everything goes according to plan. Any other questions? Oh, Dick's got one.
The question is whether or not Taylor does weddings and funerals.
I have done one wedding. I am a licensed minister. It was okay. I would rather do your funeral. So if any of you are planning on dying, hit me up. I'm expensive.
All right, so my question, in my personal favorite out of all the Quiet Company songs, The Black Sheep and the Shepherd, I definitely encourage everybody to check that out, especially look up the lyrics and listen to it as well. And one of the lyrics in it that I really like is, I'll go ahead and read it here. It's, I've never heard Jesus speak to me, not in any way that I'd consider speaking, but I bowed my head just the same. Though I did find some tears when they played that song, but for the four right chords, I will play along. I've always been that way. It doesn't matter what the lyrics say. So my question for Taylor is, even though that last line is really referring to one thing specifically, was that kind of a hint that your doubts went beyond that and kind of have always been there, even in your career? I know you don't like the term Christian band, but I mean, you were kind of widely thought of as a Christian band. Does that kind of indicate that your doubts really went back much farther than just recently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are two different kinds of people. Okay, I'll change that. Three different kinds of people of faith. I think that there are people that doubt, people that lie, or people that are insane, and that's, those are really the only three ways you can be a reasonable person, and one of them's not being a reasonable person, it's being an insane person. So, yeah, I think I always definitely doubted, and I think even more than I doubted the actual thing, I doubted my belief in the thing. Like, I kind of doubted, like, I would always wonder, like, do I really believe this? Like, I behave as if I believe this, and I say I believe this, and I get the feels when we play the songs at church, but like, is that real? Like, do I really believe that? Like, it's the gun to the head thing, like, I know clearly I would deny it, like, so is that belief? Can you choose belief? Like, what's the nature of real belief anyway? So yeah, I think pretty far back it went where I was kind of like, I think I'm part of this, and I always feel like you weren't believing hard enough or whatever, which I think is kind of what they want. But yeah. So I guess that's it. Brandon's got another. What's up? The question is, how has the Atheist record affected our life or our career? Well, we're about to put out a new record, so that's our last new record that came out was Belong, and it was definitely our way biggest record. It sold really pretty well. And we have a lot of people that connected with it in a really big way. And so every time we go around the country now, there's always a few people that want to pull us aside and say what it meant to them, which has been really cool. Because I'm not sure if you guys know this or not, but there's not a whole lot of atheist-themed music out there. And so we were kind of happy to at least put our drop in there. So it's been great for us, man. Even the religious response to the record has been really positive. And when we made the record, we set out, one of our goals was that we didn't want it to be an alienating record, because we had built this largely Christian fan base, and we didn't want to just be like, look, you guys, we're an atheist band now, So we were very conscious of making the record very personal to me. So it's not like, you should believe this, you should do this. It's more like, hey, this is what I went through, and you can relate or not relate. And even the Christian response to it has been that everyone relates to it, because everyone has doubted. Maybe not everyone ends up at the same place, but I think for most people that hear it, we at least shared some part of the journey together, And so it's been really great for us. We got good press for it and all that stuff. Any other questions? Johnny.
So I know Tommy's views and I know your views. What does Matt think about all this?
what does Matt think about, he's asking, I guess, what the rest of the band thinks about spirituality and atheism. Matt, you almost speak?
I think about somewhere in my mid-20s, I moved out of Michigan, where I grew up, and was living in Chicago. And I didn't really have a defining moment when I was like, I no longer believe anything that my parents believe. But I know for a fact that there was a time when I was like going back, and they were like, go to church with us. I was like, this is incredibly uncomfortable because it's not me. I don't believe anything that these people are saying to me. And so there was never like a clear moment when I was like, yeah, I'm done with this, but I've been done with it for a good long time. So I like people to think. It's my favorite.
Yeah, we're all pretty much on the same page. Gentlemen?
Did you ever go to like a
Yeah, for sure. Like the question is if I ever went to like Bible camp and had like the youth camp experience, and the answer is yes, every summer for my high school and middle school. And dude, that's kind of like what I miss about it, honestly, because it's such an emotional roller coaster of a week, and I think it's just that whole like, you go up and we go to this place called Falls Creek, which is in Oklahoma, and it's just, it's beautiful. It's like up in the mountains, it's scenic, there are like dams and rivers and trees, it's just gorgeous, and you play basketball all week, and they have some, they have a band, you know, that's really great. Yeah, it's a whole thing. And then at some point around Thursday, like is when they start making everyone feel really bad about themselves. You know? So that's when it gets really emotional, you know, and everyone recommits their lives or they get saved or whatever. And so it's this like everyone's crying and like making these big life decisions or seemingly. But I think that's kind of what I miss when I think nostalgically about the time is not necessarily like any of the belief structure. It's the ups and downs of like, oh, we're part of something huge. Like this is a huge universe-shaping thing that like we're all connected to. And so yeah, I think I definitely got saved like 3 or 4 times there. You know, like or whatever, recommitted, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, those are good times. Anybody else?
All right, thanks again, Taylor, for doing the Q&A for us. That was great.